is. I mean, they rev my engine, but they don't belong in the newsroom. It is Anchor Man, not Anchor Lady.
What do you want from me? I'm not America's sweetheart.
Goodness sake, kid. Keep your voice down. Your father's listening to the radio.
I'm not America's sweetheart.
This is the Annie Fry Show.
We learned that when he was receiving emails pertaining to Ukraine, his son Hunter was copied on them, which we've always heard that the White House has said that Hunter Biden wasn't an employee of the government. He wasn't any part of the government. They couldn't understand why House Republicans on the Oversight Committee were investigating Joe Biden and his son Hunter Biden because Hunter wasn't a part of the government. Well, if that were true, then why was he receiving emails from the government?
Congressman Comer asking some questions that are becoming very obvious questions that I think people of all political walks of life should really want to know the answers to. Welcome back to the Annie Fry Show. Happy to have you here on a Tuesday, a GOP debate eve. But we're going to set aside the conversation about Republican candidates for president, and we're going to take a close look right now at the current president of the United States and some of the connections that he has to Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden's mounting legal troubles. We welcome Andy McCarthy back to the Annie Fry Show, contributing editor at National Review and Fox News contributor. Andy, thank you for coming back with us today. It's great to have you here.
Annie, it's my pleasure.
Thank you so much. This weekend, we had some news pop out. It's always interesting to dip into the news on the weekend when things are coming out that maybe want to get swept away after the Sunday news shows hit. And this connection, it looked sketchy to begin with, this special counsel appointment of David Weiss. But after this weekend, we find out even more so, more questions that need to be asked. Andy, what sticks out to you?
Well, I've said from the beginning, I think we've discussed it, Annie, that, Weiss is a high-ranking official of the Biden Justice Department. He's not qualified under the regulations to be a special counsel. Everything we know about the way that he's conducted the investigation is that his design is to have it disappear. That's because he's trying to protect the president. It's not so much about Hunter Biden as Hunter Biden's father. And the way I guess I'm one of the things I want to underscore, because I've been saying this for a couple of years, but it's kind of inside baseball stuff for the Justice Department that I'm not sure people grasp how this works all the time. The ace in the hole that the Justice Department always had with respect to the Biden investigation is that they carried it as a tax case. And the reason that's important is we have 94 federal districts throughout the United States. You have a United States attorney in Missouri. We have them all over the country. With respect to most crimes, they can indict whatever offenses, criminal offenses happen in their jurisdiction. But tax is different in that every United States attorney in the country needs the permission of tax division at the Justice Department to bring tax cases. So even though Garland was saying all this time that Weiss was an independent actor and he had the final say on everything, which we now know is just complete nonsense, he's always had to get permission from the tax division to do anything as long as they carried this as a tax case. So this case has always been run by the Biden Justice Department, and it's always been a profound conflict of the Biden Justice Department having to investigate the president's son for behavior that the president is implicated in.
We're speaking with Andy McCarthy here to start the Annie Fry Show off about what has been uncovered this weekend that mounts on top of what we have seen the House Oversight Committee looking into Hunter Biden. We compound that with the IRS whistleblowers as well. All of this to say that we've heard Joe Biden repeatedly state, I had no business interest or involvement in any of Hunter Biden's business dealings. Congressman Comer saying there in that clip at the beginning that Joe Biden was CCing his son, among other of his son's colleagues, on government business that was taking place at the time. Is that an unethical move on then Vice President Joe Biden's part, or is there some sort of illegality towards that?
Well, at a minimum, it's unethical. Whether there's illegality, we have to know more details about exactly what what these memoranda were about. What I'm constantly amused by is the suggestion that people have, or the suggestion that people make, that Biden wouldn't do anything like this. You'd have to be really stupid to do something like this. You'd have to be really stupid for him to, talk to his son about the business or get involved in any way in the business. Joe Biden has a 50-year track record of having appalling judgment. This isn't like a new thing where he got old and sort of senescent and he's lost his fastball. This guy never had much of a fastball. And, the idea that everything we can see from this scheme, and I think this is the most important thing, Andy, to come out of the reporting over the weekend. If I'm the Republicans, what I say is what happened in the Hunter Biden case is Exhibit A of what the Biden family influence peddling scheme was about, because the scheme was to sell access to Joe Biden because he's a powerful guy that you wouldn't want to mess with. And here you have these big, tough Justice Department prosecutors who are scared to death and won't indict Hunter Biden, even though they have him dead to rights on tax evasion charges and gun charges, because they're intimidated by Joe Biden. This is exactly what people were willing to spend millions of dollars on. These foreign actors who poured millions of dollars into the Biden family coffers, they wanted the appearance to the outer world that they had access to Joe Biden and that they were not people to be trifled with. And if you were like the Ukrainian government or the British government who was looking at a Ukrainian, a dirty Ukrainian businessman, he wanted to brandish that he had connections to Joe Biden in the hope that that would discourage people from conducting investigations they didn't want conducted. That's what the scheme is. And he obviously did it with his son here. And the reason I underscore this is there isn't anything subtle or clever about this. This is basically, the scheme is about creating an atmosphere of intimidation that discourages government regulators or Justice Department prosecutors from doing the job that they would do if the person was any other person who didn't have political connections.
We're speaking with Fox News contributor and contributing editor at National Review, Andy McCarthy, right now. I'm going to ask you a naive question. You say that people were made to be intimidated by Joe Biden or even afraid of Joe Biden. What would they be afraid of?
Well, what the Biden lawyers told the Justice Department guys is that it would be career suicide to prosecute Hunter Biden. They would. It's like one of these. You'll never work in this town again. You want to have a career in government where you climb the so-called greasy pole. You have to be careful of who you offend, and you have to make the kind of connections that'll help you along the way. I think most of us from the outside looking in, we find it disgusting, but that's the way it works.
Yeah.
And he was a powerful political figure. He was in a position, therefore, to make life miserable for anyone who crossed him. And most people who would then be in a position of crossing him would figure, maybe I'll go regulate someone else. This probably is not something I want to get involved in. And what they were trying to do, what the family lawyers were trying to do here, is convey to the prosecutors in no uncertain terms that if you go down this route of charging the president's son, it is not going to end well for you. And that's exactly what they were telling them.
One of the things that I heard this week in one of the reports was that should the prosecution have continued on in the moment that it was that Joe Biden would have had, they were going to put Joe Biden on the stand? Did I hear that correctly? What did that mean?
Yeah, well, what they were saying, what the lawyers were telling Weiss, who was the U.S. attorney in Delaware, was that if you dare charge Hunter, then Joe Biden is obviously going to be a witness to the defense. In other words, you, Justice Department, are going to have to deal with the fact that your boss is going to be a witness against the Justice Department. You are going to put him in the embarrassing position of having to be a witness in a trial. And that was a threat to the Justice Department. And it worked. When Weiss heard that, he wanted to cut a deal where basically the whole case would disappear. And the only reason he didn't is because the whistleblower agents from the IRS went public. And that, at that point, politically, it wasn't tenable to just make the case disappear. So they tried to concoct something where he would plead to basically nonsense so that they could hold their heads up and say, we got him to plead to something. But in the meantime, it would be no jail time and it would be a complete immunity bath. And that's what they tried to pull off.
Andy McCarthy, is there any scenario that, in my complete and total lack of legal expertise, is there any scenario whatsoever where David Weiss is the right guy for the special counsel job?
No, I mean, he can't. If you're going to talk about special counsel as that term is understood in the regulations, he's not even eligible, because what the regulations say is you have a special counsel when the government has a conflict of interest. The Justice Department does. That means the Justice Department can't investigate a case in the usual course. And what makes a special counsel special, supposedly, is that the person comes from outside the government, not just outside the Justice Department, outside the government. So if you're following the regulations, you have to bring in somebody independent from outside. Weiss is a high-ranking official in the Biden Justice Department. He's the presidentially appointed United States Attorney for Delaware. So he's not eligible under the regulations. So if we were just going by what the regulations say, he's not eligible to be a special counsel because he's not a person who's being brought in from outside the government. And then if you want to just get down to like the facts of the case, his whole performance for 5 years has been to make the case disappear. I mean, here we are in August of 2023. He's had this case since 2018. He's never indicted it. Even after the plea blew up a few weeks ago, he still hasn't indicted it. And the effect of not indicting a case is that the statute of limitations continues to run. If you want to stop the statute of limitations so that you know what case you have to charge it. He hasn't charged it. So as a result, like everything that's happened, I should tell people the statute of limitations on tax offenses is 6 years. The statute of limitations on every other federal crime that's of relevance here would be 5 years. So it's 2023. Everything that happened other than tax prior to August of 2018 is now gone.
Wow.
Everything that happened that involves tax prior to August of 2017 is gone. Some of the most outrageous acts in this investigation happened in 2014, 15, and 16 when Joe Biden was vice president. But because of the way Weiss has run this case, you can't bring those charges anymore because they're time barred.
Man, and then when you look into the past of David Weiss as well, being from Delaware, connected very closely to the Biden family, I think it was discovered this weekend as well that he had been in business with Beau Biden at some point in time years ago. Is that accurate?
I think they worked in the same office. I don't know what the nature of their relationship was, but just so people know how this works. The Democrats run around and say, we could trust Weiss with this case because he was appointed by President Trump originally as the U.S. attorney. And that just bespeaks an unfamiliarity of how this works. In order to get confirmed, the way this all works, to be a judge or a United States attorney in a district, you need the support of the 2 United States senators from the state. In Delaware, those senators are Democrats who are very close to the Bidens. So the only people Trump could have gotten through confirmation in Delaware were people who were approved by Senators Coons and Carper. So Weiss has the job because those guys were comfortable with him. They're close Biden allies. And remember, Weiss was the only Trump-appointed United States attorney who was retained after Biden took office. Every other one was fired. So he understood that as long as he ran the Biden investigation without bringing charges, he could keep the job that he wanted so much, which was to be Delaware U.S. attorney. The only way he could screw it up would be by charging. So he never did.
Last question for you here real quick. We're speaking with Andy McCarthy, Fox News contributor and contributing editor at National Review. The Republican majority, very slim but very important in this instance, is there to investigate even as some of these statute of limitations end up running. And they're looking into Hunter Biden, obviously. It seems as though now they're looking into David Weiss, that there's the potential for the House to do something about Merrick Garland and his role and the oath, the testimony that he's given regarding this. And it seems like potentially this is all to investigate as well the President of the United States. Have you been, in your observation of what the House has been doing so far with the majority, are you trusting that they're on the right path to, even if those statute of limitations in the court of law goes out, that the House is still going to try to get to the bottom of this for the American people?
Yeah, I not only am satisfied that they're doing the best that they can under the circumstances. I would not, there's a lot of talk now about doing an impeachment inquiry, and if it were up to me, I think I would just leave Comer alone and let him do what he's doing because he's been doing a great job. The reason I say that, Annie, is they have very slim margin in the House, the Republicans do. It's a 4-vote margin. And there's a lot of Republicans, I think, who will be very antsy about the idea of doing an impeachment inquiry. For one main reason being, there's no way that they could ever impeach anyone in the Senate, right? The Democrats have that locked down. So what a lot of Republicans, I think, sensibly are going to say is that, look, Comer's doing a great job. Look at all the information he's dug up. Look at how much more advanced this is in the public consciousness than it was 6 months ago. Why would we mess around with a good thing when, if you try to go the impeachment inquiry route, first of all, you might lose because you might not have enough Republicans to even vote for an inquiry. But even if you could get them and you wrote some articles of impeachment at the end of the rainbow, they're going to get acquitted in the Senate. So you're going to shut down the government to do an impeachment that you can't win. And in the meantime, those are weeks that we should be talking about Biden's economic program, his foreign policy, all the disasters that we're dealing with in the country. Why give him a chance to get acquitted by the Senate and then run around and claim vindication? Yeah.
I think that's very, very smart politics, and I'm very encouraged to hear your thoughts that the direction that Representative Comer is taking this right now is a fruitful endeavor. So we will continue to watch it. We are so grateful when you give us your time, Andy McCarthy. Thank you for being with us again today.
Thanks, Annie.
You're welcome. He's a contributing editor at National Review, and he's also a Fox News contributor.